Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Hanging Out with Nolan Hong. And joining us this week on the podcast is the Executive Director of Samaritan Counseling Center Hawaiʻi. I've gotten to know her through through the HOWNH that Jamie and I have been producing these last several years. But I did get to know her a little more in depth in a recent meeting, and just the amazing work that not only her organization does, but her really unique background in her life story of how she got to where she is. And so I thought it'd be really fantastic to have her on here and get to know her story a little more, and also learn more about what kind of work is being done at Samaritan Counseling Center Hawaiʻi, because that really hits really close to home for me, because as we've talked about on this show a lot, mental health and counseling and therapy is such an important part of not only my life, but I know a lot of our listeners' lives as well. So it's going to be really great to hear the kind of work that they do at their organization. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our guest today, Miss Rachelle Chang. Hi, Rachelle. Rachelle, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Oh, of course. It's a pleasure. It's always nice talking to you.
Yeah. So just a little backstory for those who don't know. Explain to the audience how we kind of virtually met during the pandemic.
This was funny. So there was a HOWNH, which is the Hawaii Alliance of Nonprofit Organizations. They had an annual conference, and that first virtual conference, they offered kind of a behind-the-scenes look. And I think I was the only one who showed up.
Yes.
So I got to have a private behind-the-scene tours, and then someone jumped in at the end. But it was really nice. It was like my own personal guide through the back scenes.
Yeah, that was like the most embarrassing, but also the most wonderful experience for us. Because so Jamie and I were doing the virtual production of the conference, and then I was also emceeing it virtually. And so we thought during lunchtime it would be really cool to give the audience a back behind the scenes tour of like the set and how we operated this virtual stream from our friend Alice Enoy's Happiness U studios. And the only person who showed up was you. And I was like, oh my gosh, nobody showed up. Oh yay, one person. And so we were showing you, and then we kind of didn't think about this at all, but the tour lasted like all of like 2 minutes, because we're like, it's such a small room and there's really nothing much to it. And we're like, so that's pretty much it. So it's so embarrassing, but then it was also really cool, because then we did get to meet you, and I think you won a prize that year or something,
I
right?
did.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're like, hey, I'm so happy. Like I got to announce your name. It's like, I know this person now. So that was how we met, and it was really cool. But it wasn't until a few weeks ago that we really got to get to know each other through a Zoom call.
Mhm.
And I was really blown away and also excited about the kind of work that you and your organization do with Samaritan Counseling Center Hawaii. I had no idea the kind of services that you provide for our community. So I really wanted to get a chance to have you share a little bit more about what you do, because I think more people need to know about the work that you're doing. So can you share with me like what Samaritan Counseling Center Hawaii is, and what kind of services that you're providing for the people of Hawaii?
Thank you for asking. I had no idea that Samaritan Counseling Center Hawaii existed myself
Oh,
until
really?
a friend of mine invited me to apply for a job. So I
Wow,
go in
that was the
thinking,
first time.
that's the first time. And I'm
Wow.
thinking, okay, it'll be a part-time job, no pressure. And then suddenly lots of pressure. But we're basically a counseling center. So we have licensed counselors, and we help individuals, families, couples, youth, probably ages, 8 and up. And we help them make positive changes in their lives. We help them make better decisions, cope with anxiety, trauma, depression, all sorts of mental health issues, and just help them become more healthy, more whole, more resilient. And we basically accept people regardless of their ability to pay. So whether or
Mm.
not they have insurance, whether they can afford a copay or a deductible, we'll still try to help them as much as we can.
That's so important because I think a lot of the times that I've had conversations with people that I knew um, that have reached out and were interested in getting therapy and counseling because I've shared my story on here. And one of the first things that they bring up is, I know it would be helpful, but I just don't know if my insurance covers it or if I can afford it. Like that's one of
Mhm,
the first barriers to
mhm,
them getting help. And so for you to have this opportunity to help people of all situations and remove that barrier
mhm.
is so helpful and so important and impactful.
Yes, that's something that people might not know. Most
Hmm.
insurance companies will cover mental health counseling. And,
Yeah,
generally you don't need a pre-authorization. So
that's
you
good
can
to know
just call
too.
and find out.
Yeah.
There's only a couple of circumstances where you need to check in with the insurance company, and that's mainly active duty military.
Hmm.
But for most others, you can call, and as long as the counselor is in network, your insurance will probably cover it.
And with your organization, if they do have some kind of issues or difficulty with their insurance plans and such, you would help them navigate through it. It wouldn't be something that they just got to figure out on their own, right?
Right. We'll do our best to help them figure it
Yeah,
out.
and
And
that's
so
so
we
helpful.
offer sliding scale fees, and we can, help them come up with a payment plan, or um, reduce, or even in some extreme cases, waive their copays if they can't afford it. So we do our
Mm.
best to make sure that there's no barrier to receiving counseling.
And the other thing that I found really great too is that, a lot of the times people mistakenly think that, you know, um, finding a counselor or somebody, it's a one size fits all. Like,
Oh no.
but everyone has their own unique situations and things that they're dealing with, and you have a pretty eclectic uh, team of counselors to handle all kinds of different backgrounds and situations, even when it comes to like religious
Mhm.
um, preferences too, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we don't just, have someone call and then we send them to the next counselor on the list. We'll ask them questions. We'll try to match them with someone who fits them. And sometimes they do want to include their faith or spirituality in their counseling. So we'll try to meet that need. And sometimes they don't want anything to do with religion, and that's
Yeah.
perfectly okay. We can do psychotherapy without anything spiritual based. But
See,
we often
that's yeah.
find, I'm sorry, we,
No,
we
no, go
often
ahead.
find that it's not just the mental part of mental health, it's also, your community, your faith, your feeling of connectedness with people, and your physical health too. It's, are
Yeah.
you getting enough sleep and exercising and eating right? So it's all part of being healthy.
That I love that you make that a point to fit people or clients with the right type of fit as far as a counselor, because that is so valuable to me. And in my experiences of finding, the right counselors and such, initially in the beginning of my journey, I thought, you know, it's a one size fits all. Like if a counselor doesn't work for me, it's probably my fault. Like something's wrong with me. But what I've learned is that just like in relationships and friendships and dating, all kinds of things, jobs too, like it's about the right fit, like the right match. And that was one of the other barriers that I had too of seeking out a therapist. Was I was afraid that, I don't want to go through this whole process of, trying to find the right therapist for me, and then it's like they're not going to be a good fit and they don't know what I need and they don't know me and all these kind of things. But what really helped me connect with the right kind of help that I needed was a friend who was a great resource to me, took the time to learn who I was and what I was looking for and the things that I wanted to work on, and she was able to go through her network of therapists and go, I think this person would be a good fit. And so I thought this is a great way for people looking for help to get the right kind of help. And so to know that your organization does that and takes into account all of the things that a person is looking for, and then trying to match them with an appropriate, counselor, is such a game changer, I think, for someone. And I'm really appreciative that you put that intention into the work that you guys do.
Thank you. I'm always so happy to hear when a client tells me that, they hit it off with their counselor right away, because
Yeah.
that means that we found the right person for them, and that they can maybe get better, because they trust that person.
Yeah. What in your experience, what is so helpful about having a client matched up with a therapist that is a good fit? Like, how does having the right fit make an impact on the therapy and the success of the help that the client is seeking out?
Sometimes people are sharing such private things maybe they haven't told anyone else, and you really want to be able to share that with someone you trust, someone who is going to validate you and support you and is not going to judge you, or tell you you're wrong,
Mm,
right? So that's really important, to find that person that you can open up to.
yeah.
And it's not quick. You don't just come to the first session and immediately just put it all out there. Sometimes it takes time to build that trust with someone.
Yeah, I went through a similar experience with my therapist, where I thought, okay, on this first meeting, if I don't hit it off, I'll know this isn't going to work. Uh, and I remember leaving that first one going, I don't know about this. Like, I'm not sure if this will work, but I'll give it another couple sessions. And I'm
Hmm.
so glad that I did, because my therapist has been like the best thing that has happened to me, and was indeed the right person for me. And had I just gone with that first initial, like, first or second day, you know thought, because I go in with a lot of resistance and
Hmm.
apprehension, and so that's what affected my ability to connect. And of course, like you said, it's not going to happen in the first day. But had I just gone with that first initial feeling and just said, it's not going to work, and I left, it would, who knows what would have happened in my journey through my mental health. So I'm so glad that you explained that, because I think there's people probably in the same boat as me who would think, first day, got to figure it out, and if it's not a good fit, then abandon ship, because it's a scary thing, that first initial
It
getting
is.
to know you period, right?
Hmm. But it's not like speed dating. You can't
Yeah.
just make that quick decision. Sometimes it takes time to build that rapport with someone, and then you get to know them as well.
Yeah. Now, you said that you didn't know about um, Samaritan Counseling Center until you applied for the job. But now that and how many years have you been with the organization now?
This is my 7th year.
Wow,
And I
7
have to
years.
admit, the first time I came to the office, I got lost. So I was wandering around looking for a sign. I was about 5 minutes late to my interview.
No way. So when you first learned about the organization,
Mhm.
what was it about what you found out that led you to apply? And I know you said you thought, oh, it would be a good part-time job and such, but what was
Mhm.
there something about the work or the organization that that connected with you enough to where you said, okay, let me apply for this?
That's a funny thing, because in a way I didn't choose this job. It chose me. So I found out about it from a friend of mine from our pottery studio that we both belong to, and she said, "Oh, they need help." And so I went to the interview, and I felt that they really did need help. They didn't have any kind of office staff or support at that time, so they needed someone like the next day to
Oh,
kind of
wow.
help. And so I thought, I can do this. My son was older, so I thought I could kind of dip back into the job market again and see how it goes. And I just started learning from scratch. So from the very first, it's been a learning experience for me, coming in with no experience with mental health and then trying to, get things going and keep things working smoothly.
So you said getting back into the job market. So prior to this, what was your situation? And I know what industry you came from, but I think it'd be it's such a fascinating story to me. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, where you came from, but what was your situation prior to applying um, that you described as, this would be getting back into the job market. What were you doing before?
So right before this, when my son was young, my husband and I started up a couple of businesses. So one of them was in remote controlled helicopters that we went in with a couple of other partners. And another was a remote controlled governor for RC helicopters.
Oh,
So he's the
wow.
tech side, I'm the marketing side. And we just kind of do it almost like a side hustle. It's
Uh-huh.
not our main job, but it keeps us busy and it earns us extra income. And it's something we could do while our son was young and, we could trade off taking care of him.
What
So I
was your
hadn't been in
background
a,
in like, were you guys like into remote controlled helicopters prior to creating that business? Like, how
he
did you come up with this
was,
idea? Oh, okay.
yeah, he was a big RC helicopter enthusiast before.
Wow.
Everything from building it to flying it and then fixing it if it crashes.
Now, was this prior to kind of like the boom of drones or even during?
Yes, it was
Okay.
before this.
Wow.
Yeah. So
And
we're a good fit because he does all the tech and I do the marketing side of it and the business side of it.
mhm.
So we're not overlapping or and arguing about things.
And you were doing this while your son was young, so you said it was kind of like a side hustle or a part-time thing. So was that intentional because you wanted to have a lot of time to raise your son?
Yes, I was not ready to go back to a, 9 to 5 office job. So knowing that this was part time, I thought, okay, I could do this and
Hmm.
still be able to take him to school and pick him up and do all of the mom things.
And prior to your son being born, what were you doing? What was your career before that?
My career was actually in computer software marketing. So totally unrelated to mental health, almost opposite, in fact, of what we do. But it was an exciting time. We were in Cupertino and Sunnyvale at that time when it was, right before Apple really boomed again. And it was just a wonderful time to be involved in tech. It gave us
So,
a lot of experience.
wow. So what kind of things were you doing when it comes to this type of career?
Mhm.
What kind of things specifically did you do that you enjoyed and that was exciting for you?
I just loved working on advertising, brochures and collateral, doing direct mail pieces. One of our big projects was this is kind of funny. We came up with a whole campaign about bicycles, and so we actually sent some of our top prospects actual bicycles as part of a direct mail piece.
What?
It was a
Oh my
wild
god.
time.
How many years were you in that industry?
About 9 years, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah, but
So,
it was a great time.
so I think I was watching a documentary or something where someone was describing their, experiences and what they were doing, and I think they had some like footage too
Mhm.
of just like some of the, now looking back, insane events and things to do, like to promote, tech industry type of things, and they would have these like big parties and
Mhm.
stuff like that. Is that kind of your experience too of what was going on? Like, do you have any kind of big memories of like, wow, that was pretty crazy that we did these kind of things?
We didn't go too extreme, but we had some fun events. The biggest that I can remember is we hosted Spyro Gyro, and they came to our event to play, and we kind of tied in our marketing theme with them. And yes, just some of the direct mail pieces and sales support that we did. It was just so much fun and so creative. You couldn't do that now, I think. People are
Yeah.
much more cost conscious about things. But at the time, one of our campaigns, we had this idea that, we keep people's data safe. And we actually sent out these fireproof safes to some of our prospects.
Wow.
Yeah. So
See, this
just
is,
fun and creative,
yeah.
and they're very open to different ideas.
So was that something that was always a part of you, even growing up? Like just this, because to me, yeah, that's so creative, and and even just hearing you talk about it, sounds like you get excited about. Like, was creativity always something that was a big source of, joy for you, and that you knew that you wanted to go into this type of industry at an early age?
I had no idea that marketing existed when I was a kid. I just
Oh,
knew that I loved to read and I loved to write. And looking back, I wrote a lot of really bad poetry. But, at the time, I'm like, yes, I could do this. And then I get to college and I'm thinking, well, what can I do with this, with writing and reading aside from teaching? And I just kind of happily fell into marketing. So it
how did
was
you find
just,
it? Did you reach out and seek advice, or did you just kind of, as
nope,
you're looking through the
I just fell
books, like,
into it. So, kind
wow.
of like this job, I applied and I was an admin assistant, and they just had me doing more marketing things. And they liked what I did. So then I did less of the admin and more of the marketing over time. And
Wow.
yeah, it's very interesting how career paths kind of find me instead of me looking for what I want to do.
Yeah. It almost seems like you're really like connected in some way, like, I don't know, to whatever anybody wants to describe it as, whether it's like, God or whatnot. But it seems like you're really connected to with what you understand is this is something that is a joy or a passion of yours, and that, like you said, these things come and find their way to you. um is that something that you kind of feel like in other things, not just career wise, that you've experienced, where maybe it's like that's how you found your husband or whatnot, like do you feel like this is kind of a reoccurring theme for you, that things seem to find, I don't know if the word is correct, serendipitously? Do you?
I love the way that you put that, though, that we're being open to opportunities. I think
Yeah.
we all have these opportunities. It's just recognizing them.
Hmm.
And a lot of times you don't recognize it until you look back and say, "Oh yeah, that's what happened." Because at the
Hmm.
moment you're just kind of treading water. You're just reacting to
Yeah.
things. But you can look back and say, "Oh yes, I made that decision and then that led me to this." And it was the best decision.
That's awesome. So, with this, going back now to how you got started with Samaritan Counseling Center. So, when you did the interview and realized that they needed help, was there any part of the organization, though, like as far as the mission or the services that they provide, that also connected you to wanting to help, or was it just merely like, hey, here's a organization that needs help right now. I'm available. This sounds like something that I can do to help. Like, Was there anything more than just that drew you to saying, okay, I want to, you know,
It's a little embarrassing, but no, I didn't feel any connection or a call to mental health
yeah,
until not in the beginning.
right.
But as I talked to clients, I started to feel that call that they're doing good work and I can help them do good work and help these, all the people that call us. The first time that I had a woman call and she was crying on the phone, that just hit me. This
Mm.
is someone that needs help, and here we are. We can help her. And it's our mission to help her and not have her jump through all these hoops to get help, but to help her, right away. So that
Was
made a
that
difference.
was that a little? Was there any difference in when that connection happened, um, in how it connected you to this work? Was that a different experience than what you had experienced like doing your previous jobs in the tech world? Because there's meaning to when you're being creative and creating these ad campaigns and connecting, your audience to this type of service or product that you have. But was there any difference in that kind of feeling versus what you felt then when you received that call and realizing the type of help that you could connect this caller to?
A big difference. Marketing makes me happy, or,
Hmm.
being creative and kind of coming up with something that people enjoy or are interested in. But helping others, it's a entirely different level of making me feel happy. It's it's just feeling that sense of purpose,
Hmm.
that you're helping someone else be as best, the best that they can be, or even
Yeah.
maintaining their level of happiness and joy in their life.
So when you said that prior to this, you had little to no experience with mental health or any kind of understanding of it necessarily, um, what has this evolution for you personally been as you've gotten to not only learn more about but see through the work that's being done with the people that you've connected with and such? What would you say has been, you know the things that you have seen from a personal side as to your, I guess, journey with mental health and working in this capacity?
I have to admit that the fact that I knew nothing about mental health was actually a good thing. Because if I had known, I probably wouldn't have taken it on.
Wow,
I
why is
would,
that?
I would think this is too much.
Mm.
I would have to learn too much, or it's too complicated. There's too many laws to follow about, confidentiality and about licensing. And I would have been really intimidated. I would have
Mhm.
said maybe this is too much responsibility. But because I didn't know anything, I thought, okay, I'll just learn as I go. And looking back, I'm thinking, wow, that was a lot. I would never have
Yeah,
taken it on if you had just said, okay, here's your job, you know, go do it. So
that's
that,
really amazing.
yeah, that's something to think about, that sometimes not knowing a lot can be a benefit to you.
Yeah, because so you came from advertising, marketing, tech world, jump into this position, and initially the position for this organization was more just like um
Admin, it was
admin
being the
work, right?
front office.
Yeah. So how did it then turn into what was the journey as far as from just being part-time admin to where you're at now, which is the executive director? Because it's so fascinating to me that one, you come from a background of technology and marketing and advertising, and then you go to admin, and then all of a sudden now I see, fast forward, you're the head of this organization. Like what happened there? How did that transition and change occur?
It was a slow process because I was learning as I went, but as I learned, I started seeing more things that we could do, or more things we could save time on or save money on. And I just
Hmm.
started doing it, you know. Um, we're a very flat organization. We don't have a hierarchy of, reporting to this and this. So
Yeah.
you just kind of get an okay and then and do it. So I think that initiative helped push me along. But if I had had this task list in the beginning, you know, I wouldn't have tried to tackle it. But since I could do it one at a time as I went, it was manageable.
Mm.
And
Did you? No, go ahead.
I started feeling more of a connection to wanting to help people and seeing how important mental health is.
That was exactly what I was going to ask, was like where the transition, was when it went from like, hey, this is from a task perspective of like, here's how we can do things administratively different to make things more effective, to then there's probably this transition of, hey, how can we help more people? Like the mission became a greater inspiration versus the technical side of things, right?
hmm I don't have one defining moment. It's just as I learned more, I realized how important it was.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking back to when I was young. My parents would never have sought a counselor. My grandparents didn't really talk about their feelings so
Yeah.
much. So the fact that people could come and ask for help and share their feelings, it was a new idea, and I thought, look at how much healing people could experience by
Hmm.
being able to talk to someone.
Yeah, I think we are in a unique situation too in our community, that I think that, there's so many Asian, um uh I guess, Asian people or Asian cultures, and a lot of them, it's based on, we don't share feelings, we don't share emotions and such. And so for you to say, like, thinking of your parents and grandparents not ever considering that, like, I think that's a similar experience that we all share, as in, especially here in Hawaii. And so, um, in what you've seen, like, have you seen that the growth of acceptance in therapy, that you're seeing a change in that, especially culturally for us here in Hawaii?
Absolutely. That is one good thing to come out of the pandemic. That is, everyone's aware of how important mental health is, and everyone feels that they're not alone in feeling, these feelings of anxiety and stress and loneliness. So it's okay because everyone's feeling it. So we've seen a rise in people calling us. We also see more people going to their employee assistance programs and asking for counseling through that program.
That's awesome. And I think, as far as how you are seeing, I get you have the unique perspective of seeing two sides. One side of like, wow, there's a rise in need for this, which for some could be like, oh my gosh, that there's so many people that need help. Like, that's a scary thing. But then you also see the other side of it, where the people who are getting help, the blessing and the benefits that they're getting from that. So how are you feeling right now in the position of, we're kind of on the back end of the pandemic, where we saw just astronomical rise of people seeing the value and importance, but also the need for mental health, um, and looking kind of at like what the near future is looking like. How are you feeling about our current situation? Because I think there's a lot of people who will look at now being like, wow, there's just so much pain, so much trouble in the world. But on the same side, like you mentioned, there's so many more people now who are willing to go out and get help. So how are you feeling about what the situation is now in our community?
I feel that there's actually more hope than before, more of an understanding that things can get better for them, and that, you know, we can control how we react to things, right? We don't have to
Yeah.
be at just reacting to someone else. We can control what we feel and how we respond to challenges. So a lot more hope. People, I feel during the pandemic, we all did a lot of webinars. So we
Yeah.
could go to lots of different trainings and just learn more on our own. Even if we weren't seeing a counselor, we could go to a webinar talking about mental health. We could go to trainings and just stay at home and do it. So
Right.
in a way, I think people are learning tools themselves. So not just going to a counselor, but researching it on their own. Whereas before they might not have thought to research it.
Hmm. That makes me feel good to know because that you have that perspective and that you're seeing that because it's easy for especially what we see out there like to get discouraged and thinking like, oh no, there's just so much pain and suffering and frustration. But to have that perspective is really encouraging, and it makes me feel good to know that, especially for someone in your position that is in the front lines of this, to have that kind of hope makes me feel good, and I appreciate you doing the work that you're doing and to have that kind of perspective and outlook.
Yeah. And then I think one thing that's come out too is people feeling a sense of purpose and connectedness. They realize
Hmm.
how important it is to have people in their lives, right?
Yeah.
So I think because of the pandemic, we're also strengthening our family and community ties, and that's so important to being, well and being whole in our lives.
Yeah, I went through that specifically too, like because of the pandemic. It made opportunity for me to really connect with family, where now
Hmm.
um it's a weekly thing that we get together and have family dinner, which prior to that I think maybe we saw each other one or two times a year kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so to kind of glean some of the gifts and jewels from this really awful period is really healing, I think, to know like, hey, there's some really great blessings that came out of this. And like you said, with people realizing that relationships are important. Like I remember deep into the pandemic, I was starting to be like, are we ever gonna be able to, connect again? Like there's almost this point where it's like, maybe we'll never like be able to hug each other again. Like it was really sad and depressing. And just this last week, I was just thinking like, I was having a wonderful time with friends and such. And I was like, I just remembered that feeling of, am I ever going to even get to hug them again? And it's just like, and now just this hour conversation means so much more to me, where I'm like, this is the greatest time ever. I'm so appreciative of having these people in my life and having the ability to have these conversations. So yeah, I totally resonate with what you're saying. And it's so neat to have that kind of like experience now of connectedness. Like it's deeper than what I could have imagined, and kind of thanks to the pandemic, which was horrible.
I
Through
agree.
the
I
pain comes great
appreciate my
things.
friends more and my family
Yeah.
more than before, which is kind of sad to say, but not seeing them and not being able to hug them, yeah, you really learn what's important.
So you were mentioning that going into this, it kind of just evolved into the position that you're in now, as the executive director. um and you'd mentioned that this was nothing that you'd ever imagined yourself doing. um but now looking back, how do you feel about you know the position you're in, and the work that you're doing, and what do you feel is your kind of like your responsibility, and to why you were, I guess, this found you? Like, do you feel like you've figured out like kind of what your mission is in life?
That's an interesting question because I was wrestling with this when I started, when I decided to accept the executive director position. Why would you want me to be executive director?
Yeah.
And at that time, I came up with a personal mission that I would be a connector for the center. I would try to connect our clients with the right counselor and our counselor with the right client and our board with the right partners, and just kind of keep all these relationships going. And that really helped me as we went into the pandemic, that I would try to keep those connections strong, even though we couldn't see each other anymore. And I think one, one reason that I was kind of in the right place at the right time for the center is that I guess I have an entrepreneurial mindset or a startup mindset. So I've been through a couple of early startups, and I'm used to kind of bootstrapping things where we don't have a lot of resources. We all wear a lot of hats. We do multiple things to try to get the job done. And that's what the center needed. They needed someone who could do a lot of different things and not get too stressed about it.
Ah. And did you get that entrepreneurial kind of spirit from your parents? Did your family come from an entrepreneurial background? Where did that come
It
from
came
for
from
you?
my husband and I. We graduated from college and we both had full time jobs, and then we just wanted to keep busy. We just had things we wanted to do. And yeah, so our first job or company together was actually a software company. So still in the tech field, but
Hmm.
it worked so well. It let us put a down payment down on our first house. You know, that
Wow.
extra income and experience really helped us move further.
For a lot of people, I think just the idea of starting from scratch and not knowing having that background, like I think a lot of entrepreneurs have come from families who were entrepreneurial, and so they kind of have that a little foundation.
Hmm.
um how what did you kind of use to get over that hump of the unknown, um to pursue these things, especially uh starting from ground zero with an idea versus like, oh, here's maybe like a business formula that we can follow it. How did you guys kind of get past what I assume in the initial fears or reservations?
Well, we both had full time jobs at the time. So we
Mm,
were kind of workaholics. We didn't go out too much. We didn't travel too much. We were just, I guess, a little ambitious. We wanted to do things and see what we could do ourselves, not just working for someone else.
yeah.
So yeah, we'd come home from work and work on our other job, and we just kept it very separate. So there wasn't a lot of risk, and we didn't push ourselves. We didn't have deadlines like we must do this by this time.
uh
So it was very low pressure, and we just decided we enjoyed it, and our skill sets matched up, or we complemented each other, I guess. So it just worked out.
so my wife Jamie and I, we work together, we have our own business together, and like the common response or question we get from people is like, oh my gosh, how do you work with each other? Like, I can't stand my husband or wife, and like to know I have to work with them is like crazy. How was it for you and your experience working with your husband, and how did you guys make it work to where it was a successful venture to work together and stay married at the same time?
I guess having two separate desks really helped. We don't share computers.
Yeah.
um, and just having a separate office where in the office we're working, outside of the office we can be married. Yeah,
Do you think
just have
it helped
space.
your marriage working together, or was it in spite of having to work together, your marriage still worked?
That's hard to say. Maybe a little bit of both.
Mm,
There are times when things bled into the job or the side job, but there are times when that helped smooth things over because we knew each other well and trusted each other.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's what was so valuable for Jamie and I is that um, being partners in a business forced us to be good, to learn how to be good communicators
Hmm.
for the sake of the business, which then bled into our personal relationship because we couldn't, ignore each other for a long period of time because then the business would suffer. So we had to learn to talk through, even no matter what, how angry or frustrated we were at each other.
Hmm.
It forced us to communicate, which um, I will say that communication has always been the key to the success of our relationship. Is communicate, as painful as it is to communicate at all times. That's been what has helped us and grow our relationship. So I always say that, when people bring up like, how do you guys do it? I'm like, I think if we weren't, in business together, I don't think our marriage would be as working as well as it is, knock on wood, as it is now. Um, and I know
I,
that could
I love
change, but
I love how much you have fun together, though.
yeah,
You can laugh together, and that's so valuable.
yeah. Do you find that that's something that you and your husband share a lot
We
too?
don't
That
laugh a
no,
lot. Not at our jobs. We're serious. We're like, okay, this product needs to go out, or we got this order. Can you do an invoice? It's pretty serious.
but at the same time, that's kind of, you guys complement each other because that's the type of personalities that you have, right? That
Yes.
right? Because
And what
if he was a jokester, you'd probably be like, gosh, this guy doesn't take anything serious, right?
but what helps is we have similar ideas about money.
Ah, yeah.
So we don't spend a lot of money, but we'll buy what we need to, you know. So we'll always tell each other, if you need it, buy it, but we don't
Hmm.
frivolously spend. So having that same outlook helped in business and in as a marriage.
Yeah, because that's like the number one source of problems for both marriage and business partnerships is money.
Right.
So that you have that share, that's, you guys are like 50% above, the threshold for success right there. Was that something that you were always like ingrained in you, early on from your family, as far as like the way you valued and perceived money and such?
Yes. So our parents owned the home, but we had three generations. So I
Oh,
was the only
wow.
child, and we had four working adults contributing to the household. And
Wow.
that actually, we weren't wealthy, but because there were so many working adults, we were comfortable. And of course, with only one kid, I was a little spoiled, but I still understood the value of working hard and, not spending a lot.
Yeah.
And my husband, he is one of three brothers, and they moved here from Hong Kong when he was about 5 years old. So he's
Oh,
always
nice.
understood the value of working hard and saving money. His dad
Yeah.
worked two jobs for most of his childhood to help,
Wow.
pay for things. And he learned working hard from his parents too.
What kind of work did your family do?
My dad he was a teacher for over 30 years.
Oh,
My
wow.
mom had a couple of different jobs, but she's currently working for the state Department of Education.
Oh, wow. She's still
Um,
working.
yeah, she's still working. My grandfather was a parking attendant.
Hmm.
He rode a motorcycle and he collected all of the parking meter
Oh,
change.
wow.
That was his last job. And then my grandmother, she worked at a bowling alley. So I
No
used to go
way.
there when I was young, and she'd sneak me French fries and food.
Which bowling alley?
Um, the bowling alley in Kalihi, Campbell.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, fun fact, I was on the high school bowling team one year in high school, and
Mhm.
Cam Bowl is where we had all of our I don't know what you call it, matches. um, so that bowling alley has a fond place in my heart. Did
That's where
that
I
mean?
went to bowl too.
So I was going to ask, did you get to bowl a lot as well?
Not when I was young, but when I was in
Oh,
high school, I learned. And that's where I learned.
so do you still bowl?
No, but it got to the point where I bought my own ball.
Yeah. Do you still have it?
It's in the garage somewhere. But yes, I do still have it.
Do you at least get to like from time to time bowl for fun, or has it been a many years since you've?
Many years. So
Wow.
then after bowling, we learned golf. And so we played golf for a while. And then, so my clubs are also in the garage.
So do you get to golf now as well? Like, have you
Oh,
golfed?
we stopped playing golf.
Oh, oh, sad. Because
But
you
now
guys are too
my
busy.
husband, we're too busy. But now
Yeah.
my husband wants to learn pickleball. So
Ah,
he's
okay.
trying to get me to go. I'm thinking about my first game, or not game, but learning to play on Saturday. So
This
that's my
Saturday?
weekend, this Saturday.
Holy smokes! How exciting! Jamie and I bought during the pandemic. We bought a pickleball set, and we've used it 4 times, I believe. Um, so I don't actually know the rules per se. I kind of know some of them, but each time we've played, we've had a lot of fun.
Okay.
So, but we're very low with experience. So if you enjoy your pickleball experience and need to find, couples to play with later on, me and Jamie might be a good starter for you guys because we're not very good at it, but we have paddles and stuff. So
Okay. I will
yeah,
let you know how it goes.
yeah. And if you ever want to dust off the old bowling ball, I just finished telling my mother-in-law who loves bowling that if she ever wants to, join one of these like I don't know tournaments or leagues or something at the local bowling alley, let me know because it's been a long time since I bowled, but every once in a great while that I get to bowl, I enjoy it. So I said, I'd love to pick it back up again if I have somebody who wants to go with. So maybe if you ever want to dust off the old bowling ball, we can go do that too.
Okay. I know I enjoyed the Connect bowling.
What
When
is that?
the Xbox 360 Connect, where
Oh,
you can do the virtual bowling.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's cool. We played the one at like Fun Factory where it's like this kind of like you throw this tiny little ball into the machine and then it has like the video of how many you hit. And for some reason, I do really well in that versus the actual bowling. I don't know if they skew it to make you more successful just so that you keep playing, but I could share in your enjoyment of digital bowling. Well, aside from us possibly, connecting on pickleball or bowling or whatnot, what other kind of things maybe do you have in the near future as far as with Samaritan Counseling Center Hawaii that you might want to share with the audience, and how can those who want to get more information, whether it's to seek services, learn more about your services, or how can they help? How can we as a community help support your organization to continue doing the great work that you're doing?
Thank you. So during the pandemic, we started doing some mental health education workshops. in person and virtual, but we're trying to move back to in person now. We have 3 kind of workshop series going on. One is Wahine Wellness, and it's workshops that help to empower and uplift women and girls. So we're talking about healthy boundaries or building self-esteem or yoga, different topics there. So all of our workshops are free and people are welcome to join us. We also have a series called Creative Coping, where we talk about art or poetry to kind of express yourself and work through, maybe what you're feeling as coping skills. So those are also coming up. And then we also have a suicide prevention workshop, 100 Million Reasons, that'll be on in July. So that is also something that we're very aware of, that we want to build mental resilience and mental fitness, and so that, because this is a serious and really burdensome topic for all of us. And we want to make sure that people know what resources there are with suicide prevention.
For that particular workshop, is that for also, would that also be beneficial for people who have loved ones that they're concerned of, that they can learn um, techniques and skills to support their loved ones, or is this strictly for those who are looking at their own personal situations and thinking this is something that could be really helpful because they anticipate having struggles themselves?
It's both for people who want to build their resilience, but also people who are concerned about someone else, because then they'll
Oh,
have
great.
some tools and ways to help someone else to build their own
Oh, good.
mental resilience.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I'm so grateful for these workshops that you're creating, because I think they're so valuable and necessary. And I want to make sure that we get the word out as much as possible, because it's one thing to have these resources, um, but it's another thing to make sure that everybody in our community has knows that they have access to it, and this to know that it's free. I mean, that's again removing that one of the biggest barriers for most people. And is are these workshops, people can access them virtually, or is it in-person workshops?
We're moving back to in person.
Hmm.
It's just, especially talking about suicide, we want to be
Yeah.
in person and see people's responses. But some of them are virtual, so it just depends on the workshop.
Oh, good. So what
And
that
it's
tells me is it's meets people where they need it, right?
exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
so, people, if someone's not ready to see a counselor, then a workshop is a good way to kind of, get some strategies for how to cope in their lives and maybe make them more comfortable with seeing a counselor in the future. You kind of
That's a
plant
great
that
point. Yeah.
seed that it's okay, that there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah. And there's something to it being surrounded by others, uh, as your first experience,
Hmm.
versus just going in alone and, you know, having to, I guess, deal with this theoretically like by yourself.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I think that's a great point, that this could be a great entry way to people's journeys in their mental health journeys. And so for information on all of these workshops, where would be the place for them to get information on that?
They can always visit our website. It's Samaritan Counseling Center Hawaiʻi.org. We have a Facebook page, an Instagram. We have a LinkedIn account also. We're trying to be almost everywhere that we can to reach people, wherever they are.
Yeah.
We haven't started TikTok yet, but some of the some of the other places that we also partner with local churches who might send word out to their congregation, And we try to partner with NAMI Hawaii or Mental Health America of Hawaii when we can.
Oh,
And
great.
those are also great organizations for people who are not ready to see a counselor, but maybe they
Mhm.
want to learn more about resources or a support group or to take a mental health screening.
Yeah, I've gotten to know these organizations well, and I'm so excited about the the outlook for our community as more as organizations like yours continue to grow and reach more people. Um, but what are you looking forward to most, or what is your vision for the near future as far as like what do you plan that you're excited about trying to accomplish? Because I feel like you, in talking to you, you're very like you have a lot of strategies and you're organized, and especially with your background in marketing and such, like I feel like you're very strategic, and knowing also your personal connection to your organization's mission and the work, what's something that you're really excited to really push forward or see happen as these next couple of years start to come into fruition for you and your organization?
So before the pandemic, my big vision was to start opening offices on different islands so that we
Mm,
could serve people no matter where they are. And the pandemic has really changed that because it's opened all of our eyes to the fact that we don't need to be there in person.
yeah.
So we currently have clients on the Big Island, on Maui. I think we had a couple of clients on Kauai and Molokai, during the pandemic. And that's made me shift my strategy a little, where it's not about opening that brick and mortar office. It's about spreading the word to neighbor islands and then maybe seeing if there are ways that we can partner with people to make sure that they have access to technology, especially in rural
Right.
areas, or maybe access to a private room. Maybe they can't do counseling at home, but they could
Yeah,
drive somewhere else and someone could let them use their internet and a private room to have a counseling session. So
that
I'm
makes
still
sense.
working that out, but that's kind of what I'm seeing as a possible way forward to help people.
I
A different
love
kind
that
of partnership.
because yeah, because that was one of my another one of my barriers early on in when I was starting to do my sessions virtually, and me and Jamie were living in this tiny, you know, apartment. I was starting to do my sessions in the car, in the garage, just because it's tough to feel comfortable having a session knowing that others might hear what you're saying, or
Mm-hmm.
it's very distracting and an uncomfortable position. So for you to have this intention of creating, um, looking for places to have clients find not only a private place but also reliable internet connection too, that's also a big thing, because um, that can really ruin the experience when you don't have a reliable internet connection and things are like dipping in and out, and even connecting to the call is a hassle. Like to know that you're putting that intention into creating um, possibilities for clients, um, is really awesome. I'm really excited and grateful that you are being so intentional with that, and I'd love to see the success of your vision happen very soon. That sounds awesome. So, well, sounds like you got a lot of work on your hands, and so that you're very busy. So I don't want to keep you much longer, but I just want to say this has been awesome. I'm so glad that we got this time to hang out, and I knew having you on here would be great, because even in the things that I learned about you in our personal conversation, I knew that having you on here, I'd be even more I'd learn so much more, and that it would be really fantastic for the podcast audience to learn more about what you're doing over at Samaritan Counseling Center Hawaii. So I really appreciate you taking this time to open up and share about all of the things that you are doing, but also share about your background, because it is such a fascinating story of your journey, and I'm so glad to know you and to know your story. So thank you.
Thank you for asking such good questions and pulling some of these things out of me.
Well, before you go, real quick, are you and your husband still doing RC helicopter stuff?
Nope, he's moved on
No.
to fishing.
Oh my
So,
goodness. Okay. Well, I was gonna say I was excited to learn more about the RC helicopters, but fishing, I'm really like grossed out by the fish, so I can't be excited about that. But uh, I'm glad that you guys. Well, we'll connect on pickleball possibly, so we'll do that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rochelle, and let's please keep in touch. And I will, for those listening, I will put the Samaritan Counseling Center Hawaii website links and all the ways to connect with your organization in the show notes and the description. So I look forward to our listeners connecting with you and either supporting or getting help with your services. But thank you so much, Rochelle.
thank you, Nolan.